I'm Lila, and I'm horizontal.
I'm Tiger, and I'm horizontal. With Lila.
I like the pause.
I forgot.
Sex positive culture.
It's my body to give.
Are threesome gifts a thing?
Taking a bath.
I like your bed.
Horizontal.
This is Horizontal with Lila.
In this episode, I lie down with my housemate Tiger. Tiger goes by many names, but we'll only use 2 of them here. Tiger is a professional cuddler, or Cuddlist. Her cuddling name is Ellen. You can find her on cuddlist.com/Ellen. That's CUDDLIST.com/Ellen. She's also a reiki practitioner, a trained yoga instructor, a comedian, check out The Comedy Witch on Instagram, and a Cats fanatic. That's the Andrew Lloyd Webber musical theater version of Cats, to be clear. In lieu of performing in the actual musical, Tiger cosplays regularly as a feline, and soon plans to host cat cuddling events at Hacienda Studio, in which the cats are actually humans in full cat costume because, and I quote, "You could cuddle real cats, but they're unreliable." She writes and performs funny songs, and last year I saw her in an hour-long one-ish woman show entitled "Kiss Me, I'm Jewish." She sang about celebrity sex dreams and her period. Her parents were there. It was pretty amazing. Tiger is the closest thing I have at this point to a sister. We have deep talks in the kitchen, during which we usually quote the title of her yet-to-be-written inspirational memoir, Breakthrough Junkie. She scrapes me up off the floor when I need it, and texts me that there are Puffins in her cabinet for a late-night snack, when I don't. I love her. I hope you will. Come lie down with us.
Welcome to the singing laundromat. We are not responsible for theft.
Oh, I love Kimmy Schmidt. Okay. There's trains going by. There's horrendous music from a local business. And that's what we've got. And we're in my little treehouse, looking up at a starry blanket. Tiger, what was your parents' relationship like growing up?
My parents are still together. Their relationship was generally good, but I always kind of wondered as I got older what good means, because they've been together as long as I've been around. I'm an only child, but there was a lot of yelling, but I always kind of thought that was normal. I would go to my cousins' houses and hear our aunts and uncles yell. Mm-hmm. And I would even go to my aunt and uncle's house and hear them yell on the other side of the family, and my grandparents' house. And so it's...
My dad's side is also yelly, but Italian-American kind of yelly. Like, it's in the car!
Right. It's in
the car!
It's like a booming, kind of a loud yell, whereas, like, Jews, it's kind of like a loud whine.
Oh.
What are you doing? You're crazy.
Like that? Really like that?
Like, Pam, we're going to be late. I'm coming. I was ready.
Yes.
Just very petulant. And I guess it makes me laugh now when I think of it. And when I go home and I hear them kind of quarrel in that way, I guess that's just, there's normal yelling, and then there's like, wait, is this normal? And I guess my dad definitely had a temper. both my parents worked, and my dad would come home at the end of the day, and sometimes he would just, you never knew when he was going to be in a mood. And so both my mom and I kind of learned to walk on eggshells around him, or God forbid I brought home a bad grade. It was just, I feel like that's normal. It's normal to kind of be a little scared of what your parents were going to say if you were going to disappoint them.
But I didn't know that about your childhood, but it makes sense now, because even recently you lost a job and you were concerned about telling your parents.
Yeah, I definitely care. They're pretty much the most important people in my life, whether or not that's something that I show or not. I feel like
I didn't know that either.
I am afraid to disappoint them. I think there are times that I think in my head what would make them happy or what would make them proud, and save that for the phone conversations and the trips home. And there are some conversations that I avoided having, like even when my dad bought me a bike for my birthday about 4 years ago, a beautiful new bike, and I had always had such challenges around riding bikes, but I had gone to Burning Man. And I rode out there, and I was like, I'm going to do it. I'm going to finally ride this bike. And my dad took me to the shop, and it was great, and it was on sale, and it was like a $500 bike. We got it for like $250, and it fit me perfectly, and I rode it around the parking lot, and he was just so happy. And oh my God, she's riding. This is great. And then we can bike together, because he takes these long bike trips up and down from like Israel, I want to say like to Jordan. Can you bike from Israel to Jordan?
I do not know, but we can find out.
But he bikes the thing, I think, along the Negev, but it's a bike tour he does almost every year. And he finally took my mom this past year, and he's always wanted to take me, and I've always been like, I don't know if that's my thing. But he's like, no, you gotta keep doing it. So he got this bike, and I never really rode it that much. I took it out a little bit here and there to some parks, but I never got fully comfortable riding in the city. And so at some point, the bike was stolen. It was in the basement. And at the time, we were having a lot of construction coming through, and we had some bike thefts. And it wasn't clear when it was, because we didn't have security cameras at the time. But one day I went down just to check on it, and it wasn't there. And I looked around, and I saw that there were other bikes that were there before that weren't there anymore. And I saw that, and immediately I was kind of like, oh man, my bike got stolen. But I was like, oh man, I'm going to have to tell my dad, and this is going to break his heart. And I know it sounds so ridiculous, it's just, it's a thing. I was like, it was so important to him
That you ride.
that I rode, or that I took care of it, because he has a story about me that I don't take care of my stuff. And which is interesting, because I actually do take quite good care of my things, but there's those few occasional instances that burn in their brain, and so they think I don't take care of things. And so I was like, shucks, I don't want to have to do this. And I waited for maybe a year, 2 years. And then the last time I went to Connecticut, we're sitting and we're talking in the living room, and he asked me how the bike is, and he's like, have you been riding it? Because it's like he knows that I wasn't really.
Yeah.
And I said, no, not really. Like, I tried a couple times, and I was just fudging along, and he was like, do you still have the bike even? And I was like, well, I was kind of afraid to tell you this, because my parents' house got robbed. It was very traumatic, especially for my dad. we lost a lot of things. We had a beautiful jukebox that belonged to my grandfather. He had 2 jukeboxes, gave one to my mother and one to my mom's sister, my aunt. And it was filled with 45s from the era that he had spent so much time putting into it and like finding things for. And they took his fancy bike, they took his electric guitar and a leather jacket. And so that happened. So he was very traumatized from this robbery. And I knew if I told him also that we got robbed, then he'd fear for my safety. So there was just all these different things in play. It's like, oh man, like he cares so much about this bike. He cares so much about me. He cares so much about my safety. But I tell him, I was like, I don't want to tell you, but the bike was stolen at some point. And he just got very quiet and still. And he started to tear up. And that was just, it was really hard to watch. He was just so bummed out. And he was like, well, okay. He was not happy about it. He was trying really hard not to make me wrong for it or that it was a problem, but
It's a beautiful way that you broached it, though. You said, I've been afraid to tell you. Reid Mihalko has this really thoughtful protocol for how to talk to people about challenging things that you might have been keeping from them. And it's very, very simple, but there's something I've been afraid to tell you. I've been afraid to tell you because I fear that X, Y, or Z will happen. What I actually hope to come out of telling you is this, and here's what I have to tell you. And it kind of reminded me of that because the prelude to it was, I've been afraid to tell you, which I think usually softens people. Because they think, why have you been afraid to tell me? Am I a person that people are afraid to tell things to? You know? And one thing I'm curious about is I've known you pretty intimately for 3 years now. And I had no idea that you would say that your parents are the most important people in your life. I wonder, what is it that has you not showing it?
I think it's something I've been thinking about a lot lately. And I've been trying to show it more. I think that as growing up as an only child, I felt very suffocated. I felt, a lot of people are like, oh, you have so much attention. And, there's good attention and there's bad attention. There's just attention. And I guess I really, if you know me, one of the reasons why I like living here is I didn't have brothers and sisters, so I like being around people. But I also really, really like my privacy. And I felt like...
Me too.
for a long, long time, I had to fight for my privacy. Even when I go home to visit, I've had to train my parents to knock on the door and not just burst in while I'm on the toilet taking a crap.
I did the same thing with my mom when I was home. I mean, I'm 34 years old, and I would close the door, and actually I would go into the bathroom to take a shower, and I would lock the door just so she couldn't barge in. So I had some moments to myself.
Right.
I think there's something about, I created your body, so what's the big deal?
Sure, right. It's not about, right, it's to them, it's not a real big deal about seeing you naked or on the toilet. They taught you how to do that.
Right.
So it's all good, but it's this feeling of when I feel like I have my space, then I'm more generous to give more of myself.
Absolutely. The boundaries enable us to offer more intimacy.
Right. And I think that I've spent so much time trying to gather as much of that space that I craved for when I was younger. And, I also was the only grandchild on my mom's side as well. So I have these two, I'm very grateful that they're alive. I have a living set of grandparents who love me very much, and they always want to know how I'm doing and make sure I'm okay. And when the attack happened at the Ariana Grande concert, I talked to my grandma maybe a couple days later, and when we were on the phone, she said, how are you doing? Are you going out? And I'm like, not really, because I don't. And she's like, good. Don't go to any concerts. And I said, I'm not. I would like to. So she likes that I don't go out much these days. But they really care about me. And so I feel like I've had to kind of break away, on the other end. So being kind of smothered in a sense and always watched and always checked up on. And then feeling like, moving to New York and then feeling like I could explore and have my space and discover who I am. And I have this thing inside of me that's like, I need to know who I am through me. And I get when I feel like I'm being told what to do or given unsolicited advice or opinions, that it's hard for me. It's been difficult in the past to figure out what's right for me, because I have these voices of the people who are saying, get this kind of job, make sure you have security, make sure you have the this and the that. And it's like, I have both parents and grandparents who have pensions. We don't have that anymore. So you have the voices of people saying, we want this for you and that for you. And it's like, I don't know if I want to give my parents grandchildren or not. It's something I am starting to think about more, but I want to think about it in the way of, do I want children? Not do I want to give my parents grandchildren?
Absolutely.
And so I feel like I do that. I've done that in relationships too. I've dated some people who wanted to help me grow or give me advice, and I found that I would push away more when they would do that because I wanted to figure out for myself. So kind of going back to why I don't really express that, I think that's something I'm learning now in my relationships and my dating, and now I'm also starting to examine that with my relationship to my family. Now that I'm starting to have a greater idea of who I am, I feel more confident in that and secure in that. And so now I can start to kind of go back to the people who really have only given me this advice and guidance out of love, going back to them and being able to accept that love and hear that as love instead of as someone trying to control me or smother me.
I identify so strongly with that feeling the need to protect your personal space. And I was an only child too. I always wanted a sibling, but my mother couldn't have any more children after me. She had me when she was 41, so I was really, and she had tried for 5 years, so they considered me a miracle baby. And then I think she tried to conceive again and had a miscarriage, and they felt really, it's too late, this is too hard on her body, we'll stop trying. So then I had a cat who was like my brother, Tigger, and we used to fight like siblings too. He would swipe at me, I would swipe at him. And now that I live here and we're in this communal space, I think we're quite similar in that I'm pretty protective of my room, because I feel like there's very, very little in this world that is mine. And really almost everything that I own, except for a few books and photographs that are at my mother's house, is in this extremely tiny postage stamp sized room. And I don't open my room when we have sex parties because it's so sacred to me to have this space that is filled with only my energy and the energies that I invite into it. And I admire people like Kenneth who open their rooms every time. and allow people to enjoy their space. It strikes me as so generous. And I don't find that particular generosity in myself. Like, I don't want other people having sex in my room. I want it to be mine. Do you feel that same way about your room?
I definitely feel like this is where the buck stops. You know, literally.
This is where the buck stops?
I don't know if I'm using that correctly.
The buck stops here?
The buck stops here? Is that the I don't know.
I don't know.
So
it makes sense.
Basically, you have my kitchen, you have my living room, you have
my backyard,
and
my hot tub, and my basement, and
it's not
my stairwell.
Mine, it's ours. It's ours. And that's the difference, is that this is ours. And going into when I signed up to live here, I knew that I wouldn't have to open my room.
That's right.
Unless I wanted to. And there have been times I thought about maybe doing like a little interactive thing in my space, but that would be with me in the room.
Curating, basically.
Which I would like to eventually do.
I would as well.
But
it would be more like a one-on-one, like the immersive theater piece that I did recently, where one person comes into the room at a time, you receive them, and you send them out.
Exactly. And so I feel like that's also, we'll get into that later, but I do have people in my space quite often, and I host people in my space. And now I've been really excited. I just got a fluffy white rug, and I have all these fluffy pillows, and I have shades and the space, and I have my diffuser.
I envy your shades. I have for so long. If I didn't have this enormous S-shaped clothing rack in the room, I could fit a chaise in here, and it would be so nice to be able to lounge. But where would all my clothes go, Tiger? I don't have any place for them.
Right. That's that's another predicament. But
the trade-off.
Yeah. But thank you, ex-boyfriend, for the chaise. That was a nice score. I had an ex. My friend Rich always makes fun of me when I say my ex. It's like I sound like an old divorcee. My ex.
My ex.
My ex.
My ex does this. My ex does that.
Yeah, so he was moving and there wasn't space for it. So I got the IKEA dresser and the chaise. But the chaise has been a wonderful space to work. Anyway, I digress.
Do you dislike the word boyfriend? Why do you just say ex instead of ex-boyfriend?
That's interesting. It's very interesting. I don't like the word boyfriend. I say partner.
Well, boyfriend sounds pretty infantile, right?
It does.
And it's weird to have my 75-year-old father, when he had one, speaking about his girlfriend. Right. She's, in her 60s or something, she was.
Boyfriend feels like high school. But I say when I'm with someone and I'm partnered, they're my partner.
But I only want to say that if they're really my partner.
Right.
If I feel partnered by them, if I feel like they are on my team.
I say lover if they're
lover.
Or a friend if they're a friend who I am, like, for instance, some of my lovers are my friends, and some of my friends are my lovers. But some of them I would say, I would call them. You're right. It's like what feels right with boyfriend. Just at this age, I'm gonna be 30 next month. But usually when it gets to the level of calling someone a boyfriend, partner, is usually what feels like the right word, because I don't take that. I don't use that term lightly. So
when I was dating Alex before I officially asked him to be in a relationship with me, I was trying to find a good thing to call him, and I just wound up calling him my person.
Mm-hmm. All right.
Who's Alex? He's my person.
Right. That's a word. I'm sure there are plenty of words that I I'm learning now that you can find words to define who you are, what your relationship is to someone.
Well, you're the queen of renaming. So.
It is true. This is very
How did
true.
you count how many names you have? She's got 6 up, 7.
I wanna say 7.
I was gonna say 10. That was gonna be my guess.
10?
I'm pretty close.
Well, I'm not done yet.
Very good point. Your parents, what did they teach you about sex?
Oh, my parents. So it was around the time, I believe I was 8 years old. And we were going to learn about sex ed in, I want to say 5th grade. But my mom felt like it was time to talk about it. I had been masturbating from the time I was 6, 7, but I didn't know what I was doing.
How'd you figure out how to do it?
How to do it?
Well, what was the way? How'd you get into it?
I saw something that aroused me, and
what was that?
I plead the 5th.
Oh, okay.
I desperately plead the 5th.
Oh man, that means it's really good.
I saw something that aroused me, and I felt funny down there, and I started scratching the itch, and
literally scratching with your fingernail?
Not scratching, but figuratively. But I knew that it was probably not okay because that's where I peed from.
Okay. Yeah.
And I remember the babysitter was there, and I was like huddled under like a bunch of blankets. But I kind of was trying. I knew that I probably shouldn't be doing it. I didn't know what I was doing, but I knew I shouldn't be doing it. But I just kind of touched myself a little. I didn't orgasm. It wasn't until I was like 7 or 8 that I started to reach some sort of climax.
Do you remember that time or what it felt like at that time?
It just felt really good. It felt really good, and then it helped me sleep. And that's something I still do today.
Right. Masturbation is your sleep aid.
Yeah. So
Who needs melatonin?
Yeah. It releases, I forget what chemical it releases in the brain, but it does release something that does help. A clitoral orgasm helps release some chemical in the brain. I would like to know that. That's a good thing to Google. Oh, we got some rumbling.
I can ask Jana.
Yes, I'm sure Jana would have a very quick answer for that. So it felt really good, and it helped me sleep. And then it wasn't until I was reading the book Deanie by Judy Blume, and in the book, Deanie is exploring herself, and she doesn't know what she's doing, and then they're in a gym class, and they have some kind of sex ed, and they talk about masturbation, and she doesn't know what it is, and all the kids in class thinks it gives them hairy palms, and she somehow figures out that what she's doing is masturbating. And I was like, what a weird word. Like, that's weird.
It is a weird word.
And
masturbating.
It's a weird word.
Masturbating.
Yeah.
Masturbating.
Yes. I think I've put in my 10,000 hours at this point.
You're a master at masturbating? You're a master of masturbating?
I think I've been doing it for a minute. So I see this in the book, and I kind of shyly pull my mom aside after dinner one night, and I show her the book, and I point in the book where the word is. I said, Mom, I do this. And she said, okay, that's okay. That's normal. I just want to make sure that when you start feeling these feelings, that you're safe with them. And so my mom, I think that was when my mom said it's time. So she goes to the closet where my parents would hide my Hanukkah presents around that time of year. And she goes in there and she pulls out a box, and it's a board game. And she opens the box, and there's a board game, and there's a book. And the book is called The Stork Didn't Bring Me. And it's an illustrated book about a mommy and daddy telling their child about how this child was born. And there's a very the illustrations, they're very, you can find it, it's still around.
Would you recommend this book?
I thought it was a great book. And then you have this board game, and it goes through the whole gestation period, and you have these very cheery looking ovaries and sperms, and it still exists, and people have given it excellent reviews on Amazon. And
you looked it up lately?
I did. I was like, am I crazy? Did this really happen?
Does it exist?
Right. Did I just make it up?
So your mom doesn't still have it?
I don't know. She might still have it, but it was just...
Oh, you should bring that to the house.
I know. It was just so funny. It was just like, it's time. Because who else would that have been for? She was saving it for me.
She was preparing for you, actually.
And I thought that was very sweet.
Beautiful.
And so, I was kind of absorbing all that information, and that was fine. So, and then where we kind of left it was, she wanted me to feel like I could have, if I felt like I got to the point where I wanted to have sex, and obviously at 8 I didn't want to have sex, but
I don't know if that's obvious, but
no,
but you didn't want to have sex.
I didn't want to have sex at 8 years old. I didn't really, boys were still icky, but my mom basically left it as, when you feel like you want to have sex, let's talk about it, and maybe put you on birth control. And so that was kind of an open-ended, just like, please talk to me when you feel like, not shaming me for ever wanting to, but, or saying, don't have sex until you're married, don't have sex until college, don't have, it wasn't that. It was just, so when I started to date in high school, my mom would kind of check in on me a little bit, just be like, are you, and I'd be like, no, definitely not. And she'd be like, okay, well, I'm here. So she always let me know that she was available and around for when the time came.
And so there was really no shame involved in it, in your sex education?
No, there wasn't. I felt like that was fine. We definitely fought on outfits and things that were, maybe too revealing or inappropriate for school. So in that way, there was that, but I felt fine with the other stuff, with the actual acts.
I was constantly wearing things that were too inappropriate for school, and I would just cover up until I got on the school bus and then take off, and I would be wearing spaghetti straps. Can you believe spaghetti straps were outlawed in my high school? As though that's going to drive the boys so wild that they won't be able to control themselves over their social studies work.
Well, they now send kids home for that, for inappropriate dress. My older cousin...
But men are never inappropriate. Boys are never inappropriate in their dress, right? How would a boy be inappropriate? Mm-hmm. Only if he has his shirt off completely.
Right. Probably.
It's so ridiculous.
Or if he wore a dress to school, I would probably make a deal out of that.
Do you think so?
I feel like back when I was in school, it's possible. But people wore crazy stuff because of the sports. During, all the sports teams, they had these crazy days where they would wear these, they would dress up in certain ways. And I feel like there was a day, actually, maybe where they switched. It was the girls' swim team dressed as boys and the boys' swim team dressed as girls. Maybe I feel like I remember that. But my cousin and I, so we called them overshirts. We would go to the mall. We would buy these halter tops and tube tops and spaghetti straps and this and that. And then we would buy these little button-up, 3/4 sleeve, plaid, whatever, just little button-up shirts that we could wear over so that when we left the house, it looked like we were wearing just, an overshirt and the tank tops underneath. But like like a, what do you call it, undershirt or a
Camisole.
I
was
right.
actually just thinking about that this morning because when I was in college even, and I went to Tisch School of the Arts, I studied drama. There was freedom of expression abounded, right? But I had a teacher who I admired so much, who was an acting teacher and an improvisation teacher. And one day he actually took me aside and suggested that what I was wearing was distracting. And I assumed he meant to my fellow students, although nobody seemed to have a problem with it whatsoever. And now I think it might have been because it was distracting to him.
What were you wearing?
We wore movement clothes every day because I was in the experimental theater wing. And so I was wearing track pants that were tight. But what he was talking about was my tank top with the built-in bra that was like a push-up bra that plunged down. And I had, I think, a couple of those, and I would wear them often. I didn't pop out of them. They were fine for me. I felt so offended. And I felt so betrayed that somebody who I assumed was so open-minded and so liberal and a proponent of self-expression was asking me to change the way that I expressed myself was through my clothing. And he said that. He said, I am aware that this is part of how you share your personal identity and your expression. And I felt so offended that he would ask me to change that. For what? How was I distracting other people in a way that it was problematic for my college acting class?
I don't have an answer to that. Only because sometimes your boobs have been in a distraction. I apologize. I'm sorry it made you feel hurt. That doesn't feel good for somebody to hear. And I don't think I don't know where the line is, because you don't want to shame someone for expressing themselves in a way, but I don't know. I couldn't say.
I've distracted you with my boobs?
They can be distracting.
You mean just when I'm generally walking around naked as is my want to do
No,
here?
not even naked, just their presence is can be, they're there and they're nice.
Thank you. So you didn't feel any shame around just generally what you learned about sex and liking boys, but when you started to like girls?
Yeah, that was interesting because, so when I was 11, I got my period and I was going through puberty, and I had my first crush on a boy and my first crush on a girl pretty much simultaneously.
Wow. Were they in the same class?
Same class.
As you?
The same graduating class.
Oh, you were 11, so
weren't
you in one?
Sixth grade.
Oh, you said so you had several
So we had
classes at that
several
point.
classes, yeah. I think I was in history with her and maybe gym class, and
so they were both in your year.
He was in math class. I remember because I saved a pencil that I had let him borrow once, and he gave back to me, and I saved it, and I might still have it.
Oh my God.
I put it in a little jewelry box.
You would recognize the pencil?
Yes, it was blue, metallic blue with shiny silver stars on it.
So even then you had bling and you were attracted to shiny things.
Yes, I am the niffler.
You are the house niffler.
I don't steal though. But I find things I like and then I put them on my altar. Usually. I think the niffler has an altar. The little platypus looking fellow in Fantastic Beasts. Yes, so I liked girls, and I was kind of trying to figure that out because she kind of was tomboyish. She had long hair, but she didn't, she wore like track pants and whatever, but it was her energy. She just had this very like spunky, kind of boyish way about her.
The first girl that I was attracted to was like that as well. She had hair that went down to the middle of her neck. And I was just home, and I went through most of my old memory boxes. And I found a picture of her. Her name was Avril. And she had a nose ring and these beautiful pink lips. And she was the first girl I ever kissed. And it was so delightful. And I just wanted to be near her. At this point, I was probably already 15. But she also had a kind of spunky, she was wearing, in the picture that I found, she's wearing a plaid collared shirt. And, she's not wearing any makeup, and her hair is kind of mussed. And she looks gorgeous.
Yeah, girls, man.
So this girl that you were drawn to.
Yeah, no, I was just drawn to her, and I didn't really know what to make of it. I guess when you have a crush and you're 11 years old, you're just so, oh my God, yes. About a person that you don't really even, I guess I've always kind of been this way a little, and maybe I'm trying to change, but when I have a crush, I usually am like, I put them on this pedestal and I just let them be like there so I can still, look up at them instead of being like, oh, this is a human being and that I could just say hi, or I can, but I actually did talk with her. I didn't really talk with him much. He was kind of more popular, but they were both very funny. That was another thing. I always liked funny people. I liked people that could make me laugh. But
I just had a memory surface that there was a boy I liked, and I'm trying to remember it. It could have been 4th grade. I'm trying to picture the surroundings. I have very, very few strong memories before the age of 12. But I think this was in 4th grade or 5th grade, before I left Atkinson School, I think, which was down the block from me where I grew up. And I remember this boy that I liked I think I learned to flare my nostrils for that boy because he could flare his nostrils. I can still do that. I practiced for several weeks when I was a kid.
The things that we do for love. It's true.
And I think he offered me a pen. And he said, do you want this pen? And I said, yeah. And he said, how does it feel to want?
How old were you?
I think I was 10.
Oh, jeez. That's such a good movie line. I can just see that scene right now.
and then, boy runs off and girl just stands there.
Wow. I feel like if there was like a biopic of your movie, that would be like the opening scene where they usually have like the young children. There's like something that
the seminal moment
that carries through this person's adulthood.
Oh no. How does it feel to want?
It's a great line.
Fuck.
It's a very advanced boy.
Maybe it was in middle school.
Even so.
Even so.
I was really nervous that people thought I was a lesbian. I kissed one of my girlfriends in the pool. We were hiding from somebody and we had a kickboard and we hid behind a kickboard. And I kissed her and she goes, ah! Oh. And I was like, oh no. And then I just swam away and I was like, oh, we're here and we're so close and
Yeah.
that's what, it just, and I was terrified that she remembered that. We weren't really friends again until high school when we actually worked a summer job together. But I was just so nervous that I was like always looking around in the hallways seeing who she was talking to and who she was friends with. And I didn't really have a crush on her, but I was just worried that because when you're in middle school, you're young, you're just terrified
the
what people
mill.
are thinking about you. And people thought I was a witch. That was a thing, but which I didn't mind. But people, they thought one girl turned around once freshman year of high school. She turns around at her desk during a lockdown because it was to like practice in case there was a school shooting. So they turn off all the lights and we all go under our desks. And she kind of turns around and she goes, "Are you depressed? Do you take pills? Oh, do you play guitar?" And I was like, and it was funny because I wasn't, and I didn't, but I kind of thought that maybe she thought I was cool or something. It was just so weird.
Do you play guitar?
Right, it was just very funny.
Well, it's Kurt Cobain era, right?
Yes.
So, yeah.
I did have a Kurt Cobain t-shirt. I wasn't wearing it at the time, but...
Are you depressed?
Do you play
guitar? Well, that would be a good one for the opening of your movie.
Well, if I became a rock star, maybe. But, yes. But...
Right. Of course, you'd be terrified because kids are so mean.
Right. So... And it wasn't until high school that I stopped giving a crap about that kind of stuff. Middle school, so I didn't have very many friends in elementary school. They were the kind of friends that you would have them one day and then the next you wouldn't. So I felt very kind of lonely and abandoned. I read a lot during recess. I liked rainy recesses because it meant that I could just stay inside and read and not be kind of the weirdo, sitting next to the building just reading when everyone's running around playing outside. So when I got to middle school, I actually started to make like real friends, and I was just starting to get comfortable with that. And I had some bullies and there was all kinds of weird stuff. And then once I got to high school, because I had found theater when I was 11, I had found theater, and that was really my home. And I felt like here are all these great weirdos that I can connect with, and
sanctioned weirdness,
right? And I felt like I had that. And so once I got to high school, I was like, oh yeah, the jocks and the this and the that and all the whatever. They would say whatever they wanted, and it just would roll off my back because I knew who I was.
You had your tribe.
I had my peeps. I had my chosen family, and that felt so good to be around. And then when I went to performing arts high school my senior year, I felt I was like on top. That was like my peak, because I was just so immersed in the thing I loved doing with people that I clicked with who were also total weirdos.
If you're accepted somewhere, it doesn't matter if you're accepted everywhere. Right? You have that confidence that you have your foundation.
Right. And it made me feel like I had my cup of tea, so it didn't matter if I wasn't someone else's.
Aw. Cute. And then, did you tell people that you liked girls? Did you come out?
So in high school, I dabbled in the school queer communities. I was in the Gay Straight Alliance briefly, and there was a club called the Rainbow Room that was a little like queer community space. I forget where. It was a couple towns over, but I had one of my cousin's friends who was a year older than me, who was in my Hebrew high school class. We would go together on like a Sunday afternoon, and there were a bunch of other kids from different towns, and it was nice to kind of run into them. I went to a dance. It was the Gay Straight Alliance dance at my friend's private school. He went to kind of the Sarah Lawrence of private middle high schools. They were just like, all the boys had this long hair and they all looked like hippies, and like they had an amazing theater program, and like it was like a liberal arts high school basically. They had all these like beautiful greens to just run around in, and so I went there, and there was a girl who I had known through one of the shows that I went to that my friend that went to that school was in, and he had said to me once that, oh, she has a crush on you, and I was like, really? A girl has a crush on me? Me? And it's funny because there was a boy that night that I had a crush on who was there. He wasn't gay, but it was the Gay Straight Alliance. He was there, and he was also in the show. It was a Little Shop of Horrors. The girl who had a crush on me played Audrey, and the boy who I had a crush on was the dentist, of course, the sadistic dentist, and
who's addicted to nitrous.
Nitrous, yes. So I ended up getting to dance with him, and I also ended up dancing with her, and nothing ever came of it with either one. But it was nice to explore that. I was like, okay, I danced with a girl. That was that. And I told my mom that when I was going, I was like, oh, it's the Gay Straight Alliance dance. And she was kind of put off by it. She was like, well, then people will think you're gay. And I didn't really. I was like, Mom, it's the Gay Straight Alliance. So,
it's half of the name, Mom.
Right. So that was that. And then I guess journeying on into college, when I first arrived at the new school, it was a couple of days after my parents had dropped me off. I was drinking, of course, with some of the freshmen that had just moved into the dorm. And we were with a bunch of guys. Some of them were gay, some of them were bi. That was a time when a lot of the guys were like, oh, I'm bi, but then they ended up just being gay, which is fine. But that was kind of the transition.
Which is why there's bi erasure, and
Exactly.
why people think that bi is a highway to gay.
Exactly. Well, because a lot of my gay friends were bisexual originally, or they came out as bisexual originally, and then when they got to college or they weren't around maybe their families or their, whatever, they did come out as gay. So,
and they may be 5s on the Kinsey scale or something, with a little bit of attraction to, like I have a little bit of attraction to women and a lot of attraction to men, but it's so unfortunate for bisexual people that they're not taken seriously.
Right. Especially bisexual men, I would say more so than bisexual women.
There's an extra stigma.
Yes. I think both definitely, but I think men get more of that. And yeah, it's a shame. There was a girl there and she was kind of drunk and bubbly, and her name was Hannah, and we were talking about like kissing, and I think I said, I was like, well, because I knew I was bisexual at that point, but I just hadn't explored it. And I was like, well, I've actually never kissed a girl. And she's like, you've never kissed a girl? I was like, no. And she's like, here. And we made out. And I was like, oh my God, I'm making out with a girl. And it was soft. It was kind of sloppy. It was definitely not kind of what I really wanted to explore in terms of that, but I was just kind of happy to have gotten that done.
Check that base off.
Right. Just to be like, oh, okay, I generally enjoyed this. Maybe it would be nicer if we're not drunk. And that was the next milestone in that.
Did you come out to your parents as queer?
I did. It wasn't for a while. I believe I came out to them in the summer of 2010. My birthday is always around Pride. It's the end of June. And I felt like, you know what? I've been going on dates with women. I've slept with women. I know that I enjoy it. And this is something that's a part of me. And I'll probably end up marrying a guy. But I feel like my parents should know. And I feel like it's time. So I told them, and my dad made a terrible joke, and as he does sometimes, and he said, great, so if you bring a hot girl home, we can have a threesome?
Ew.
But you know my dad, he's not like a creeper.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
He was
just like, he's trying to be corny.
Yeah, he was just being corny.
The second half of this episode has been released separately by popular demand. If you'd like to become a patron of the Horizontal Arts, support me on Patreon, a website for crowdsourcing patronage. Having patrons allows artists like me to buy equipment, schedule cross-country and global tours, and devote my time to creating more and more horizontal goodness for you. Becoming my patron has delicious perks, ranging from exclusive photos and behind-the-scenes video content to handwritten postcards, and I'll tell you that my handwriting is ridiculous, spring cleaning phone calls, and creative input on future episodes. You can become a patron for $1 a month on up, and the rewards just get more sumptuous. Patreon.com/horizontalwithlila. That's patreon.com/horizontalwithlila. Horizontal's theme music was created by Alan Markley. You can find his gorgeous blue eyes and rock star visage on Instagram as Plastic Cannons. My saucy cover art was designed and illustrated by Shauna Shea. Check out her gorgeous character illustrations on shaunashay.com, ShaNashay.com. Every episode is mixed and mastered by Owen Muir of Self-Disclosure Productions. Owen's own podcast, Self-Disclosure, in which people speak openly and often for the very first time about their experiences with mental health, is coming soon. Listen, if you are a person with feelings. For most things horizontal, head to horizontalwithlila.com and sign up for the mailing list. It's getting really exciting on Horizontal with Lila. There are detailed show notes with vocabulary words. There's a glossary and links to all sorts of informative articles and sexy guidance and sensual photos. And if you sign up, they'll be delivered right to your inbox. Thanks for listening. 。
And my mom was like, well, I don't understand. You're either gay or you're straight. You can't be both.